bids are in. The gavel is dropped. Ladies and gentlemen, here at WineBid, we are finally hammered. That's right. This is WineBid's podcast dedicated to all things wine value, wine auctions, wine retail, and just wine. My name is Jeff McGurn on the WineBid marketing team. With me, as always, is Paul Walker, the patriarch of Provence, our wine expert. Welcome to the podcast.
I look forward to your introductions every time, and your fallacy of calling me an expert.
Paul has so many nicknames. He's just developed so many nicknames over the years. It's everywhere you go, people are calling him these things. If you just hang out with Paul for even a little bit in public, you're gonna hear some interesting nicknames.
Yeah, you won't hear things that we can say on the podcast.
Well, It's not network television, Paul. We can say what we want.
That's true. We
choose not to because there could be kids listening. I guess there can't really be kids listening because
no, probably not.
Wine.
No. Hopefully not.
But we don't want to offend anybody's sensitive ears. Let's jump right into this. Okay, this is going to be
jumping into.
This is going to be our recap episode. We're going to talk about
recap.
What sold at auction yesterday. Well, it's yesterday to us. May not be yesterday depending on when you listen to the podcast, but auction closed on January 7th. Let's go. Let's talk a little bit about the stuff that got a lot of bids. I think at the top of the list is this 2019 Pira e Figli Barolo Mosconi. We had 9 of them. There were 19 bids, taking those 9 from $50 to $90 to $91 a bottle, which is crazy for, when you have 9 of something in, it's coming out at 50. Recent release. I mean, this is
it's a big one. It's a big year, big scores. So I think it's interesting to know because the 18 was in not long ago, and the 18 performed quite well score wise too, but it's still substantially less. The hammer was 50, and there were multiple bottles. So yeah, that's a big hammer for that wine.
And then they had the same one, but they're Villanuova Chiara Boschis,
Chiara Boschis, yeah.
There's
a bunch. There were 9 bottles in each lot.
There was 9 bottles. That one went from $45 to $71 a bottle. But I think the points. I mean, there's a lot of movement there, and these are brand new vintages. So, I mean, this is, I think, finding its price point. But it's interesting to see it come up that far from where we anticipated it was going to be.
They're expensive at retail too. It seems like they're a lot more if you can find them at retail. So
what makes sense. What are they going for at retail?
$150 for the Chiara Boschis.
Oh, okay. So $71, $72 is not crazy. I guess. Yeah. I guess even that's Chiara Boschis.
Although there's only one retailer listed on Seller Tracker, which means it's probably really hard to find. So. Yeah, it's a rare one for sure. But that is a significant amount of bidding for that many bottles too.
Yeah,
for 9 bottles of each to get bid up, almost double for the straight Barolo or the Mosconi, excuse me, and then 45 to 70. What was it, 72 or something for the Chiara Boschis? So.
That's some action right there. We've got this non-vintage or multi-vintage MV Roederer Brut Rosé. I'm always surprised.
That's surprising.
I'm always surprised when I see like a multi-vintage thing or non-vintage.
I know. Well, if it's an old label, sometimes those are really sought after because they're impossible to find, right? Like impossible to replace. Yeah, and this looks like this is an older release for sure.
This is an older release.
There's no back photo, unfortunately, but yeah, it's definitely it's an interesting label for sure. I have no idea what era this might be or what the base vintage is, but it looks to be 10, 20, 30 years old. So that's an impossible one to replace.
I was going to say, this ain't your grandma's Roederer Brut Rosé, but actually it might be your grandma's Roederer Brut Rosé with the label. There are a few things that I always look at, like, are they using milliliters, right? Because there was a time when, it sort of moved to milliliters, I guess. But I'm not sure how much that is with wine. I've just used that domestically with stuff. But I mean, there are certainly some things you can do. I'm sure there's somebody out there who'd love to. One of the bots that listens to us can maybe comment in the show notes.
Comment on what era that bottle of Rotor is. Yeah.
Yeah.
The back, it's too bad there's no back label shot, because that might actually have probably not disgorgement info, because they rarely printed that on back labels for larger house wines, but I don't know. It might. It's hard to say. No, because the import label is actually on the. It looks like it's on the base of the front. It says, Wine Warehouse Imports, and it's attached to the main label itself. So it's like it was expressly for export way back when. So yeah, that's a tricky one, but rare. 2000 Leonetti Cellar, Walla Washington Red Reserve. 7 bids, took 3 of them from 55 to about 70. Yeah, it's interesting because I was, one of my picks last week was the Sangiovese, which was from the same vintage.
Yes, that's right.
And there was one from 01. So there were definitely some older, 20 plus year old Leonetti, which has a following. And I'll bet it's been a while since this has been an auction. That's my guess. The Reserve Red is really good too. It's great wine. Yeah, it looks like, it's been about, it was in November, I guess not too long ago. But then 2 years prior to that. So yeah, it's not in that often. But that is a jump, because it was around $50-$60 and then it jumped to, over 70.
For those of you who don't think you can get, really reasonably priced wines on WineBid, we had this 2019 Miguel Torres Secret Del Priorat. I'm not sure.
Del Priorat, yeah.
It's kind of crazy that Secret wine got so many bids. So I guess the secret is out.
Well, it got some good scores too. That probably pushed it up a little bit. Anything at $15 that's good scores is going to get a little attention.
$15 got bid up to, got a bid to like, there are 4 of them. So it's all between 15 and 18. I was surprised to see, again, non-vintage Bollinger Special Cuvée. Bid up 6 bids, took 2 of those from 75 to $100, $110 a piece. But
that's another definitely older vintage.
Older label.
Yeah, and this is from the same collection as the Rotor. So they're probably the same age, actually. And this one looks, at least, I'm going to say 25, 30 years old, just based on the kind of the age of the label and the style of the label, because they haven't had that Special Cuvée label for quite a while. So that's another very difficult to replace a Special Cuvée from Bollinger.
Yes, yeah. But this one, it looks like we had the back label on this one.
Oh, really? I didn't even see it.
Maybe. No, maybe we didn't. Not on this
I
one.
didn't see it. No.
All right, but yeah, this one does look quite a bit older. We had the
you see the Druid wines?
Who brought these up? Huh? This is the finely hammered effect. They weren't getting a lot of attention. I brought them up, and now
they were getting a lot of attention.
Now they're out of control.
They were getting plenty of attention before you.
Well, to me, agree to disagree. I think that's very subjective, Paul, and I think there may be a little bit of revisionist history in your mind.
No,
as
they
I recall it.
Multiple bids
they
before
were off the map
in the auction.
I had to educate you. And,
oh, really?
And the 6 bots that listened to us about food wines. And now
the first bids were right out the gate. The first bid started on New Year's Eve, right after the auction started. They were like, people were going after that. Like, there were multiple bids on the night of the auction itself.
Yeah, it was crazy. Those were like, you're right. It was like right out of the gate. People were on top
There's
of it.
another lot of them too, I think. There were 3 separate lots, but they all got.
There were 3 separate lots. The Merceaus, we had 3 of each of those. Those each got 6 bids. One went from the 95 Le Limousine, went from 65 to 140, and then the Les Clous went from 40. The Clous went from 40 to 130. So
130, yeah.
Jumps now. If you had purchased 10,000,
Oh, yes. This is where I introduced Jeff, our wine investment expert, Jeff McGurn. He's got all the answers for you in retrospect.
That's right. In retrospect, in hindsight, I'm really good at wine investing in hindsight.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, like Druid, I was going to look this up because one of these things I knew was affiliated with Dujac back in the 90s, and I don't believe the label, I don't know when it ceased to exist, but I don't know if it's a negociant situation where they're purchasing fruit and naming it under a different label. That's my suspicion, but I don't know for sure. But they were around. That's the thing, they were around back then, and they were still, I know, less expensive than the Domaine Dujac wine. So I'm pretty sure it was probably a purchased fruit situation. But again, I'm not positive. But now, very hard to find.
Very hard to find.
And still, it's still at 130, 140 bucks, still less than Domaine Dujac Reds for the most part, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Maurice Saint-Denis comes in somewhere around there for recent vintage or something. But actually, I could be way off. I don't know.
09 JJ Prum cabinet number 11. So 6 bids from $25 to $39. I thought that was really interesting to see. I mean, but you've got like JJ Prum's a great producer, delicious wine, and $25 for something with that, 15 years of age on it. So 39, I was not super surprised about that. We've got this 96 Cumia River Chardonnay. Yeah,
Cumia. This stuff's great, and it ages for a long, long time. It's like really, really serious wine. And I noticed this one actually too. It looks a little bit darker than it appears in reality. It's actually color's probably perfect on that. Or, I would say mature, but reasonable for the age. It passed inspection. So it's
went from 20 to 47 after 6 bids. And then, again, some more Ruder Brut Rosé going for 4 of those went for 50 to 82.
As another old batch as well.
Another old batch. And then some of that 94 Robert Monavi.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think, it's funny. This wine seemed to me to not be terribly expensive. And sure enough, it got bid up quite a bit this time. And there were multiple bottles. There were 3 different lots with, I think, 6 bottles total. But just last month, it hammered at 135. A bottle sold with no additional bids. So why the jump on it this week when there's multiple bottles? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I was a little bit baffled by that one as well.
Yeah, it's like consistently at 135, 140 for multiple months, just kind of hovering around there, and then multiple bottles show up, and then all of a sudden it gets bid up. It's kind of counterintuitive.
The other one that was interesting was this 15 String Mountain Cabernet Sauvignon. Got 6 bids, took it from 55 to 7. What was interesting to me is like we saw this in September and it sold for $55. We saw it in August. It sold for $65. So I mean, in 2022, it had gotten
it actually really bounced around.
It's been like a up and down like a ping pong ball.
Yeah, it really has. And even if you go way back, it looks like it was over 70 a few years ago, and then 55 back in 2020. So who knows? That's a weird one. That's a weird one. Almost the same price fluctuation like 4 years ago, $55 and $70, and then 4 years later, $55 and $72.
So next time it goes down to 55, grab as much by 10,000 cases, and then wait a few months, and then you can sell it 4 months, and then you sell for $80.
Well, the winery did actually change hands, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but
could. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that could very well be. Let's go take a look at the heavy hitters, shall we?
Sure.
Let's take a look at some of the stuff that sold at the really high end of the auction. We had 6 bottle case, wood case of 94 Harlan, which I believe we had discussed this.
Yeah, there was a single bottle, right, that kind of was a record breaker, or at least a high hammer for us. Was it last? No, it was maybe I can't remember. Within a couple of weeks, though, not long ago, like recently.
Well, this one sold for this 6-bottle case sold for $11,130. And then we had this one we also talked about on the podcast last week. This was one of my picks. Again, the Finely Hammered Effect. 82 Chateau Cheval Blanc, 12-bottle lot, OWC, for $8,580.
Yeah.
$580. And this one I thought was cool too. This Domaine Ramonet Montrachet 07 6-liter.
Yeah, that's been around. That bottle's been around. I think this one's rolled for a while.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a while ago.
Yeah, these were in the auction a while ago. So yeah, it's finally sold.
7,835. Some more Harlan, a 3-bottle lot OWC of the 14 estate mags sold for $9,840. We sold 2 of those. Somebody bought 2.
The 16 estate. Yeah.
No, the 14. We also sold the 16 estate.
14. Excuse me. Yeah.
14 was a 3-bottle case of mag.
3-pack of mags. Right.
3-pack of mags. The 17 was a 6-bottle lot OWC.
Right.
750s. That sold 47.10. 16 sold for 6,800. That's a 3-bottle lot OWC, and the 15 sold for 3-bottle lot OWC sold for 3,060. We had this 85 Giacomo Caterno Barolo Reserva Monfortino mag sell for 3,015. That was super interesting. And then of course,
that's a rare one.
Yeah, that's
excuse me,
super duper rare.
Do you notice? I know if you noticed, but there was a bottle of 82 Salon sold, or actually 3 of them, for what were they, 1560, I think. Yeah, they hammered at 1560. But the interesting thing is that there's a price tag on the bottle from the cheese shop in Carmel for $135.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you, but I have a 59 Dechem, which still has its price tag on it.
Really?
Yeah, it's sold for like, I want to say I could go look at it, but it was like $4. Somebody bought that.
That's insane. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when this song was for sale, it was very, very expensive. I'll bet you, whenever they had this 82 originally for sale, not sure if it was unreleased. It's impossible to say at this point, but still, I'll bet it was very expensive. But
okay.
Yeah, who would have known?
Did you see this 52 Petrus non-Chateau bottle?
I saw that bottle actually in the warehouse, but I didn't see it since. No, I didn't know that it actually had sold.
It sold. And this one was really interesting. So it ended up selling for $1,800. And this is one that I missed. Did this come in when we were out or something? Or has this been?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm not sure. I'm not sure when it came through, but recently it hasn't been in for that long. What's the vintage again?
1952.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was it wasn't in that long ago. It came in December. So it's only in auction for a couple of weeks.
Okay. It was one of the auctions where we were out. I thought that was super interesting to see a non-Chateau bottle, 52 years there. That was, to me, anyway.
It's a Vandermeulen bottling. It's pretty wild. Old import label on it too. So
we had this 2000 Domaine Loire von Romani Le Beaumont.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting because I've been keeping track of this for a while, and the prices on some of these older Loires actually have dropped, whereas the younger vintages are still going for quite a bit more. So it's a little curious to me, and I don't know if it's maybe based on tasting notes of, some of the mid 90s vintages aren't as interesting as the, more recent strong vintages, but 96 was a serious vintage for Red Bergs. And this one, it's kind of interesting because it definitely dropped in price over time.
What was interesting to me is we hadn't seen this in auction since 2013 when it sold for $305, right? And now, you're seeing it for $27.45. I mean, so that's a pretty stark difference in price over just 10 years, right?
Well, yeah, but weirdly in 21, which is now going to be 3 years ago, it was selling for $2,700 as well. So the difference there is a little strange. right? Went from 27 down to 21.
And speaking of Loire, we had a 59 Loire Grand Echezot sell for 25.30, right? Which is the same price it sold for in September. We had a similar bottle, similar condition. If you go back to 2018, that bottle was 15.25, right?
Yeah.
Go back to 07, it's down to 750. So it's kind of some interesting movement in the Burgundy area. I feel like over the last, I don't know, what would you say, like few months, maybe?
Yeah, last few months have seen some changes for sure. But it's strange too, because, like I've seen some 05, some not current, but more recent, within the last 10, 15 year span that are going for more for the same vineyard. So it's weird.
But okay, here's another example, right? The 15 Domaine Romani Conti Romani Saint Vivant RSV. This one sold for $24.25. Mm-hmm. In November, it sold for $25.55. In October, it sold for $28.30. In February, it sold for $28.30.
Yeah.
It's just like, but before that, in August of 2022, it was selling for $31.35. So you've seen it jump up. And I feel like maybe it was like the market got a little bit too high. And now we're seeing sort of a comeback down to reality. I don't know that we're all the way back down to the way we were pre-COVID, but maybe not the highs of 2021, 2022 that we saw.
Yeah. Definitely some adjustments there. We started to see those happen. Well, like you just described a while back. And I think more so for some other examples as well. So it's interesting start to the year.
Interesting start to the year. Still a bit of softening at the high end of the Burgundy market. Anything else?
Reyes is still going pretty crazy, though. I noticed there was an 07. Rolled a couple times, but then, ended up selling at 1085. I think earlier December, last year was 1220. So that one's a little bit funny, too, a little softening there. But still, people are paying serious money for Reyes.
Not everything is softening. I think what we're looking at is just the market broadly. There are just a lot I feel like there are a lot more examples of softening than there are examples of things going out of control.
Right. Then meanwhile, there's kind of this quiet kind of build of some of these California producers like Bon and Colgagno are starting to kind of creep back and set hammer records recently too. So those ones are definitely strong. They're not going crazy, but they're definitely strong.
Look,
and some of these these mid 90s, right? Like this 94 Medallion Reserve, like very funny to me that just got pushed up, with multiple bottles available just last night or whenever, Sunday night. And previously, there wasn't the same level of interest. So,
look, I still think at all ends of the market, when you compare it to European wines, I still think that there's tremendous value in Napa, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And by the way, when you look at here's a great example. We had the 97 Harlan Estate, which sold for $1,400. That Harlan Estate, if you look at which we get, fairly frequently, it's had a steady climb, right? Yeah. It's been pretty steadily climbing. It did have a little bit of a peak and came back down in 2022. But it's been steadily being pushed up versus I feel like a lot of the, Burgundy and Bordeaux, you've seen them kind of peak and then now they're starting to come down just a little bit. And a part of me wonders if it's like a lot of people got really into Burgundy and Bordeaux and old world wines, although we're not supposed to say old world anymore, sorry. And now it's a situation where they're like, look, I'm a little bit more price sensitive and I feel like there's maybe more value stateside.
Yeah, no, that's true. There's still a tremendous amount of stuff from Europe that's kind of under the radar. For sure. But, when you're talking first growth Bordeaux, second growth Bordeaux, right? There's nothing really that's under the radar there. And when you're like, am I going to pay exorbitantly high prices for this or this, right? Well, not exorbitantly high. I think it all just depends on what you see in the value of the wine, but I still do think there's a lot of value in California wine. And with that, I'm going to call an end to this recap episode. This has been WineBid's Finally Hammered. Jeff McGurn and Paul Walker wishing you happy bidding and cheers. Cheers.